Hello everybody and welcome to the cake cooking video, or the baking one, so to speak. Not necessarily cakes, but we're going to cover all of the baking today. These are about the main ingredients you're going to need, mostly, with a few extra ones we're going to have along the way. But to start off, we're going to break down fruit. Alright, so here's a list of all the fruit you can obtain in SCUM. Remember, some of them are 1 use and some of them are 4 use. And some of them are 3 and 2. There are a bunch of different ones. So we're going to go through apples right now. I'm going to hold the mouse over and you guys can look at the per use for the vitamins and minerals. But for this one, we're just going to focus on the fiber and sugar ratio, because those are the two biggest things when you're dealing with fruit. 2.5 grams fiber to 11 grams sugar for the apples. The other apples the exact same, so don't have to worry about that. Bananas are less than 1 gram of fiber, but they have much higher protein, still quite a lot of sugar. Blueberries, 3.5 to 14.5. Grapefruit, 8.5 to 2. So 13.2, 11.2, 2.9, fiber 1.3. So you can see they're all kind of around the same, relatively the same for fiber. Fibers, you know, they're sitting around. Oh, that one's good. Mango's got 3.7, nearly 4. I have a spreadsheet up on the page here that'll show you all the details a little further in depth if that's what you want. And there are other things you can look at to find out if there's any other materials you need, like coconut is only coconut for that one. We can't really have any wiggle room, but in case you're ever wondering, chocolate bars, there's a lot of different chocolate bars. All these are going to have different sugar levels. This one looks fancier. I can guarantee this one's going to be really low sugar, but high in everything else, better vitamins. But yeah, we'll look into that as we go through this today. And if you guys like the videos, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. I'm enjoying this content that we're doing right now, and I want to keep moving forward with it. So we're going to do all of these cooking today, and then I'll come back when they're all done, and we'll go through the rest of the ingredients that we went through. Before we go any further, just to clarify with everyone, carbs, anything that falls under the carb category is going to be fiber, sugars, and then there's other carbs, which will be, if you look at the metabolism, this spot right here. Sugars and fibers, and then this one right here, carbs. That all falls under carbs. Same with fat and saturated fats, both fall under fat. So just so we're clear here, when it says, we're looking at the fruit and it says 14.6 grams of carbs, it's breaking down fiber, sugars, and carbs. If you add all three of those up, you'll get the total amount of carbs. So just so you guys understand. So the 4 best fruits to use for really high carbohydrates are bananas, mangoes, pineapples, and pears. Those 3 were all the best that I could find. Alright, and just like the barbecue cookbook, we're going to go through all of the ingredients that you're going to use and just do a little bit more of a breakdown on what you need and what you don't need. So you'll notice a lot of ingredients are pretty much main ingredients, with a couple that are going to be optional. 2 things of butter, some salt. You know, this one's got a lot, oil, butter. Those are the 2 ones you're going to want to look out for the most, oil and butter. Because as we look at oil and butter, you'll notice that per 10 uses here, butter has 24 grams of fat. So times 10, if you use an entire thing of butter, is 240 grams of fat. That's a lot of fat. And if we go over and look at the oil, we'll notice that oil is 10 use and 100 grams of fats. That's going to be 90 other fat and 9.7 saturated. That means that's 1,000 grams of fat if you use a whole thing of oil. So keep that in mind when you're adding your ingredients. Now, I've said this before, yes, you need to add all the optional ingredients to get that 5-star perfect food. But you don't have to make it that way every time. Because if you do, you'll notice that if you add the vegetable oil and the butter, if it is optional like this one, your fat content is going to shoot up way higher than it should be. Avoid adding the butter and avoid adding the oil in optional ingredients if you're going to eat this food. If it's the first time use and you want to get your 5 stars so you don't need a cookbook anymore, then that's fine. And as you can see the timer here, this is in real time. 8 minutes to make that one, 30 minutes to make that one, 80 minutes to make that one. These are all real timed cooking. That takes a long time. 31 minutes left on this one. That's real time right here. 15. That's first time. Seconds is going normal to what real life is. Keeps it really easy. This is on a 1.0 times speed server. Now, there's a couple things where you have optional ingredients like chocolate. And as we've gone through before, each chocolate is different. Well, some of them are different, others are the same. But mainly you're going to want to be looking out for fat, oil, and butter. Those are your 3 optional ingredients that if you aren't wanting so much fat, don't add them. That way your food will have higher carbs, higher protein, everything else will be higher, but it'll still remain a low amount of fat. So these are the first 3 things we've cooked. We've cooked the pancakes, the tea cookies, and the lamington cake. Look at the amount of fat in each of these. 72 grams of fat for the pancakes, 49 grams of fat for the tea cookies, and 102 grams of fat for the lamington cake. If we go back and look at each of those, butter was an option. We did add this extra butter. Pancakes, oil and butter were an option. We added both of those. You could see without the oil and the butter, you don't change anything much besides the fat, and you would have 183 carbs to probably closer to 10 grams of fat compared to everything else you need to add, because milk has fat, the walnut, sugar, so on and so forth. If you're looking for carbs, like I said, skip the vegetable oil and skip the butter. And the lamington cake had butter and liquor in it. We used whiskey, but it also requires 300 milliliters of oil. So even without that one use of butter, you're probably not going to be cutting much fat off of this. So I would suggest either using the tea cookies for carbs, because look at that, 292 grams of carbs and only 49 grams of sugar, and just take the butter out. Your carbs will still stay really high, but your fat will drop to nearly nothing, meaning you'll be having a crap ton of carbs. That's times 3 as well. That's nearly 900 grams of carbs for a whole thing of that. Pancake, same thing. But the thing about the pancakes is that if you take out the butter and the oil, you will lose a use. It will go down to not 4 uses. You'll probably only get 3 uses, but you will cut those fats down tremendously. So there are 2 different types of cheese you can use. Both of them seem to give the exact same amount of everything. So it doesn't really matter if you use cheese or Richard's cheese. It's whichever one you prefer. Okay, so we've almost finished cooking everything except the baklava, which is still in the oven, and it's another 22 real-time minutes here. But that doesn't mean we can't go over the things we've already done. Now, you'll see in my inventory that I have 2 loaves of bread. Ignore the burnt thing. I accidentally walked away for 30 seconds and it burned itself. The quality of the bread, when you bake it too long, only lowers the quality of it, so you'll get food repulsion and you'll get less than of the uses, I'm pretty sure, or maybe it's just food repulsion. Anyway, the difference between these loaves of bread is that one loaf of bread I used animal fat and the other one I did. So we can see here that with the one that I did use animal fat, we're getting 8 uses of the bread, obviously, right? So 8 uses, that's 15.8 grams of carbs, times 8 is 926. And then we also have to look into the fat, which is 64 grams per 8 uses. Per 1 use is 517 grams of fat. That's a pretty good ratio, 926 to 517, not bad. But if we look at this other bread here, we get 91.6 grams of carbs. We're only getting 7 uses, right? So 7 uses instead of 8, which, yeah, you lose a little bit off of it, but you know, it's not the end of the world. You're still getting 641 carbs from that. And the fats, you're only getting 16 if you ate the whole loaf of bread. So this is where using animal fat on something would not be beneficial if you're just looking for carbs. Because sure, you do get less carbs in the long run, but chances are you're going to get fats from something else already. So like I said, make it perfect the first time. Ignore the animal fat. It's optional. You don't need it. Sugar, sure, add that. Salt, absolutely. But animal fat, you don't need it in this recipe. Don't add it. Same thing goes with the pancakes. If you don't add the oil and you don't add the butter, yes, you will get less uses. You'll probably only get 3 of 3 instead of 4 of 4, but you will drop those fats from 72 grams closer to 10 grams, and your carbs will still stay around 160. That right there is amazing. You don't need much fat. Carbs and proteins are really important for your energy. So hopefully that helps you guys decide when you're going through your optional ingredients. Now, to kind of just go through the last few cookies or a few baking items here, we got the tea cookie, tea cookie, which has probably the highest amount of carbs, nearly 300 grams of carbs per cookie, which is ridiculous, and about 30 grams of protein and 50 grams of fat. The pancakes, 183 grams of carbs, 72 grams of fat, and 16 grams of protein. The lamington cake, I wouldn't really worry about that one. It has way too much fat, and there's not really many options to remove fat, just butter. And Yeah, because there's 300 milliliters of oil in it, and that's where all the fat's coming from. Fruit cake, huge amount of carbs, extremely low fat, and that's made perfectly. You get a 4 dose, crazy amount of carbs, 4 uses. That's over 1,080 carbs from that fruit cake. All right, and you also get some fiber in there. Not much, but 7.8 grams. There's a lot of sugar. That's where the carbs are coming from. But still really nice. You get the cream slice, 200 grams of sugar, 120 grams of other carbs. Low fat, 30 grams of fat again, 26 grams of protein. Chocolate one here, 47 grams of fat. I'll just kind of hold the thing open here so you guys can take a peek, and I will have these pictures somewhere as well. This was done with perfect ingredients, done on 0 seconds left, perfectly cooked in the oven. Everything was done with 100% quality, and nothing was missed here. So just so you guys get an understanding of what kind of fat levels you're looking at, carbohydrate levels, and protein levels you're going to be getting from the baking. Honestly, the amount of time that this baking takes is probably not worth your effort. It's probably better for you to just bake the pancakes with no sugars, with no fat and no sugar, which will allow you to get all the carbohydrates and other carbs instead of so many grams of sugar. And pancakes are optional for sugar. So if you don't add the sugar, you don't add the oil, and you don't add the butter, you will get a lot more carbs, no fat almost. And that will be worth your carbs because it's very quick to make. 8 minutes, done. All you need is this stuff right here. Super easy and just really helpful. The banana, again, lots of sugars. All these things are having lots of sugars in them that you have to deal with. Other fats, carbohydrates, fibers. Sugars fall under carbs that we've talked about before. Carbs fall for sugars, fiber, and other carbohydrates, which are considered these ones here. So sugar, fiber, carbs. And that's the baking stuff. Like I said, we're just waiting on the baklava. It's the last thing, and it still is going to take another 16 minutes. All right, and the last one here is the baklava. And you can see it has 161 grams of sugar and only 60 grams of carbs, with nearly 113 total grams of fat. 13 grams of protein. Definitely not something you're going to be wanting to add unless you take out the additional sugars, as I've said before. Hopefully this helped you guys. I will have all of these on the spreadsheet as well, the totals. Only the complete ones though. I'm not going to add this one. I might have a spreadsheet and start adding without optionals and with optionals to see how many uses you get, if that's something people want to see. But please comment down below what you thought about it, if it helped you at all. Hit that like button, and if you want future videos, episode 3 is coming out, and that will be the casseroles book. This is one we're going to be working on. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next video.